Hi guys, hope everyone's doing well. So I finally am getting the chance to make a video about financing cars and how to buy cars when you want to list them on Turo. This is probably one of the most popular questions that I get all the time. And so my intention for this video is to hopefully demystify how people accumulate cars under their accounts and also just how or what I think is some of the best ways to purchase cars. So to begin with, I have found over the years from talking to people and working with people, there are a few common ways that people do this and people that I personally know of as well. So I would say, of course you have your group of people that have access to cash or have savings or whatever it is, and they'll purchase cars from auction or they'll purchase cars that are a little bit cheaper and they'll, get lower end cars that they can buy quite a few of and have those listed. So that's one way that they accumulate cars. Then you have people who have previously had either car rental businesses or they're leveraging some sort of business that they either currently had or previously had to help them purchase these cars, whether they're using revenue from that or cash flow from that or credit from that. That is how they're also buying some of these cars. Then the most common way that people get cars is through financing them in other people's names. That I would say probably 9 out of 10 times is the way that people accumulate cars on the platform. And I also have done the same. I've seen people with as little as 5 cars to 10, 20, 30, 45 cars, and this is the method that they use. Now, how they have their deals set up with people or if they're sharing in revenue and things like that, I really don't know. I think that's probably really individualized based on, whatever their connection is with their people or the people that they're using to finance cars. That's an entirely separate thing. But with that said, I will go over today with financing and kind of what I think after years of doing this today, what I think the best strategy is and the strategies that I would use moving forward and kind of where I started with this and starting to build my fleet. So almost 5 years ago, I had a smart car and then I got a second smart car, which one was a lease and the second one I financed, and I had young credit at the time, so I did those under my name and it kind of helped me build my credit. Then I had somebody who was looking to build their credit. So at that time, they had about a 500 credit score and they had a lot of credit history, but just at that moment in time, their credit wasn't so hot. They had good car loans in the past, good credit in the past. So they wanted to rebuild their credit, and getting a car loan was a good way of doing this, but they didn't necessarily want to have to make that payment. So we found a Mini Cooper at a local CarMax, which I thought would do well on the platform. It was priced pretty fairly. It was, I think, $15,000. We went into CarMax and the person got approved for the financing on the Mini Cooper. It was some crazy APR, like 21% APR. It was through Santander, which they're known to do these types of loans, but it was okay because we had a plan. We said that we would finance this car for 12 months so that he could build his credit, get his credit back up, and then we would trade out of the car in 12 months and into the car that he wanted to be in. And that's pretty much exactly how the plan rolled out. So my rule of thumb, even now, and it was back then as well, was to try to find a car that would do 3 times its car payment on the platform. And of course, I haven't always been able to reach that, but that was the goal with the Mini Cooper. Now, so we got the Mini Cooper for about $15,000. Let me just make sure I don't butcher this. The payment was around $360 per month. We did put down a $500 deposit, if I remember correctly. And then on average, I was pricing it out at about $45 to $47 per day. And back then, the market had much higher pricing so that you could totally get that all day long, especially on a convertible Mini Cooper. That car was out all the time. I would say on average, I was probably profiting about $400 or so at the time. So yeah, I mean, it was okay. It was good for the short run. And then what we did was we found the car that he wanted to trade the Mini Cooper in for. It was a Chevy Silverado. It was $9,000 off MSRP. So when we went to go trade in the Mini Cooper had about $3,000 in negative equity. So we wanted to mitigate that negative equity. And what I've learned over time is dealerships will really work on you with this stuff if you opt in for some of their extras, such as their, extended warranties or their additional maintenance plans, alarms and GPS systems and so forth. If you opt in to buy that stuff and add that onto your financing, then they're okay with discounting the MSRP because they make more money off of those products. Now, the nice thing about those products is that usually if you trade in the car early, they prorate those products and refund that back to you, which I've also done in the past. So we were able to do that and work that $3,000 negative equity off by adding in the products. And so it all kind of worked out really well. Now, of course, in this scenario, there was no rev share because I totally don't think that it's worth it when the margins are so low. So that's kind of how I got started. And as always, I can only share with you guys based on the mistakes that I've made or the things that I've experienced. So, I'm gonna kind of break this down into little sections, and then I'll share an example of a deal that I'm currently looking for. So hopefully it'll all make sense. And then at the very end of this video, I will share my biggest piece of advice when walking into the dealership and trying to purchase a car that has worked well for me. Okay, so getting into a car, it's really simple. It all depends on the car payment. If you are trying to find a car to list on Turo, you want to make sure that you have the right car payment that makes sense for the car being on the platform and based on what you think it can earn and how many days it could be out for. That car payment is very crucial and it must make sense. So before you go into a dealership or you try to go buy a car, please, I beg you, do your research, do your homework, and go in prepared, already knowing what that car payment has to be. Don't let them tell you what the car payment is gonna be. Know what it has to be so that you can work with them on getting there. So the second thing is, once you know what your car payment is, now you're ready to go buy the car. When you go to the dealership and you already know which car it is and what the car payment has to be, you really want to express that. Let your sales guy know that, hey, this is where my car payment needs to be. And they will work their magic on getting you there. It's very discretionary. They have many ways of doing this and they will help you get there, but just don't budge on that car payment because it's very important. You don't want to get stuck with a payment that you can't make. And then also another very, very important thing that I cannot stress enough, and I talk about this a lot, is that you have to know what your exit strategy is going to be for the car. You don't want to be 3 years into a car and it's having all these maintenance problems and you're out of warranty and it's costing you money, and then you want to get out of the car and what do you know, you're stuck with a bunch of depreciation, negative equity, and you're going to be screwed. So you don't want to do that. Now, when you go to buy that car, you really want to be open about your exit strategy with your salesperson. So for me, it's usually like, hey, I want to be out of this car in 12 months. I'm roughly going to put probably around 15 to 20,000 miles on this car. So what do we need to do to get this payment right so that after 12 months or 14 months, my loan to value looks good so that I'm not stuck with a bunch of negative equity when I want to get out of this car. So you really want to be clear with what your goals are and what your exit is so that they can work with you on this. Now, going back to the part about doing your homework before you go in, it's hard to find a depreciation calculator online that works for all cars. So what you want to do is do a little research and find a car that is either the car that you're trying to buy or similar, that has the amount of miles that you think you're going to put on it, where the numbers match up, and see what that depreciation looks like after a year and if the numbers work out. Go use Kelley Blue Book, kbb.com, that's helpful too. But what I was going to say is that you don't want to just go into a dealership and just say, ooh, this car looks nice, I think it'll rent well on Turo, hey, let me go buy this car. Don't do that. Please take the time to do the research. And honestly, doing the research is probably the part of this whole Turo business that requires the most amount of patience and time, because if you are looking for very specific deals and very specific numbers, it takes time to find those. And it's not just, you know, it's not like you just walk into the store and it's the first shiny thing hanging on the rack and that's the thing that you want to buy. No, sometimes you have to dig and dig and dig until you can find the right deals, because you don't want to end up with some crazy liability at the end of it, right? So you just want to be very responsible with the decision that you make when it comes to buying a car. Okay, so now with all of that said, we want to know our monthly payment before going in, and we want to share our exit strategy with the sales guy so that we end up on the right side of this when we try to get out of the car, because we don't want to keep these cars forever, because we don't want to have issues and come out of pocket. So now that we know this, let's go over an example and exactly how I would break it down, from looking for the car to what the numbers need to look like and how I would get out of it. And this is actually a deal that I'm currently looking for, so I kind of wrote it out. Okay, so we're in January of 2020. The new C8s are coming out, and it'll probably be a little bit difficult to get your hands on them. The 2019 C7s or Corvettes, the 2019 models, are really pushing for smoking deals right now. And the reason for that is a lot of these dealerships, the more C7s, the 2019s that they can push, the better chances they have at having a better allotment for the new C8s. So they're highly motivated to move the C7s. So it's a great time to find the discounts that you're looking for and to get to the car payments that you're looking for. Okay, so this is what my ideal deal would be for a 2019 C7. I would be looking for something that's 18% off of MSRP, and I would probably be looking for a Corvette that is priced out at about $59,000 MSRP. Not always easy to come by, but they are out there, okay? And then with 18% off of MSRP, I think that comes out to $46,000, but I'm not exactly sure. So I think it's around 46,000 with tax and licensing and adding on all the additional stuff. I would be looking for something that is about $52,000 out the door, finance, clean, and ready to go, which lands at a car payment of about $800 with no money down. Okay, so this is a really advantageous time to go after a car like a 2019 Corvette, which is nice because you're in the newer model. Now, the goal would be to profit at a minimum of about $80 per day. And with a new 2019 C7, you can be priced out at, I think, on average, between $100 to $120 per day. Now, let's think about the revenue side of things, right? So on a slow month, you might have to drop down a Corvette all the way down to $70 to $80 per day. And now I'm on the basic insurance because that's what makes the most sense for me. So that's an 85% cut in revenue. So my profit on a slow month, once again, a very slow month, would be roughly about $68 per day. So in about a half month, 2 weeks, you would make about $952, which worst case scenario on a very slow month, at least you're making your payment and you have an abysmal revenue. But on a good month or even an average month, you can have your car priced out at about $120 per day and profit at $100 per day. You would cover your payment in 8 days, and anything above that is a profit of $100 per day. And it's very normal for a Corvette to average on normal or busy months between 20 and 25 days out of the month. So that's a pretty good margin, at least in my opinion, on that car. So I kind of like the numbers on that. So 2019 C7, I'll be looking for you. So now that I know what percentage off of MSRP the car has to be, I know what my car payment has to be, I know that it's the right time to find that deal for this specific car. I know that this specific car performs quite well on the platform because I did my research, I did my homework, and for me personally, I've owned many Corvettes in the past, so I know and I have experience with them. Now I want to think about, what is my exit? Great, I can get into the car, I can find my payment, my loan to value and all that's going to match up when I want to get out of it, but how exactly do I get out of it? So I think that there are 3 main rules to a good exit on a car. So first and foremost, you want to get that roughly about 18% or more off of MSRP, buying either a new car or also sometimes the service loaners or demo vehicles, so definitely newer. you want to try to aim to get that lower interest rate. So 1 to 3% would be ideal. That would be the money spot where you want to land. And then you want to make sure that the car that you're choosing has a great resale value. So again, going back to doing your homework and looking at cars that are the same or similar and kind of what they look like a year later with miles on it. What is that depreciation? Now, for example, this is a real life example. Early 2019, I traded in a bunch of my Corvettes, and I had traded them in for BMWs. Trading in a Corvette at a BMW dealership was a great move because BMW is not viewing a Corvette as an auction car necessarily. They're looking at a Corvette as a car that they can put on their lot and get more money for and finance it through BMW Financial, which ends up being very cash flow positive for them. So it's a great resale trade-in car. Now, versus doing a car, which I have done in the past, and these are actually two of my cars from the past, doing a car like a Kia Sorento or a Jeep Wrangler, a Sahara, they don't have as much value to a dealership like BMW sitting on the lot. So those cars usually end up going to auction. So they are not able to offer as much on the trade-in. And then it just ends up being not as great of a value for you. So what I used to do when I got into Turo was I would always look at those lists online. Like I would Google cars with the highest resale value, and it would be all these cars like the Jeep Wrangler. You know, that was one of the top cars with the resale value, with a great resale value. And I was like, oh my gosh, awesome, I'm gonna buy Jeeps, you know? And then come to find out, when you go to trade in these cars, they actually don't have the best resale value out there. So then I really started paying attention to, you know, the brands that I was moving towards, like BMW and Mercedes-Benz, which cars they had sitting on their lot taking up space that they were marketing to sell. And I noticed, you know, when I went to Mercedes-Benz, I would see like a Porsche Panamera, I would see a Tesla, I would see a BMW. So there are certain types of cars that they find value in, that they think that they could get more money in for and finance and, you know, move them off their floor rather than sending them to auction. So those ones tend to have a better value for you as well when it comes to trading them in. And then finally, with all that said, you know, I cannot emphasize enough how important an exit strategy is. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there that their strategy is to just get these cars and to hang on to them for the term of their loan, which is, you know, usually 5 or 6 years or whatever it might be. But my only thing that I would caution against for that is that you are competing in an ever evolving marketplace, right? So naturally, as your cars age, not only are you going to run into maintenance issues, which most people generally don't have a plan for. So that's going to turn into a giant variable cost, and you just really can't anticipate that. But then eventually, as time goes on, you're going to be competing against people who have newer years makes and models. Like even right now, today, if you go right now and do a search for your area for 2020 vehicles, there's a bunch on Turo. I did a search today for 2020 cars in my area alone, and I saw there was a couple of hundred listings. So people are really, they're coming in with newer cars, nicer cars. So for me personally, that's why I never kind of went with that strategy, because I just felt like it wasn't going to keep you competitive, and over time you're going to have to drop your prices. You'll have more costs and maintenance, and you can't compete as much, so it would turn into a losing proposition eventually. So that's why I've gone with the strategy that I've talked to you guys just now, and I would really emphasize to please think about that exit strategy, that roughly 18% off of MSRP, keeping your APR low between 1 to 3% is ideal, and then picking cars that also have really great trade-in or resale values so that you end up with the value when it comes time. And then other than that, the last thing that I can share with you guys when it comes to purchasing cars, probably the biggest tip that I have going to dealerships, and you know, I've been to so many of them over the years, is When I go to a dealership, I always look for their top salesperson or sales team, so whoever that is. And the reason for that is because usually these people, they are more into moving quantity versus, you know, charging someone or trying to get as much as they can for the car. They're moving units, and as many units as they possibly can. So they tend to be more motivated to get the deal done and get you to your numbers so that they can move that unit and have that under their belts. I've also found that these people are more in sync with financing, so they more or less already know how financing will view the deal. So it's a very, I feel like a very straightforward process when you go to these top salespeople, because they already know they're trying to move a unit, they try to move quickly, and they're just trying to get you to where you're trying to be and trying to move that unit. So that would probably be my biggest tip if you're walking into a dealership. Work with the highest earning salesperson or sales team, and they will likely get the job done for you. All right, guys, I know that that was a ton of information. Hopefully that brought you guys some value and answered some questions about how people buy multiple cars. Thinking about leases and some of these other ways of doing things like corporate credit and things like that, those are entirely giant subjects of their own. So I'll definitely get some content down on that as well, and I could share with you guys what I do know. But yeah, hopefully this is helpful and kind of clarifies how some people or most people are doing the Turo business. Yeah, I think that's it. That's all I can think of for now. But as always, send me your questions and comments. Thanks for watching. Once again, my name is Saimah. This is Saimah's Experience. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I am trying to get to 10,000 subscribers, and it would be so super helpful if you guys could get me there. All right, guys, have a great rest of your night. I am out for the evening. Take care. Bye, guys.